A bald eagle diving like a bullet, claws out, aiming straight for a wolf struggling in a wild river. The wolf yelps, splash, water sprays everywhere as predator and prey collide. This wolf was doomed. So why did its worst enemy save it? Just the wolf's scared eyes and the eagle's sharp stare. The eagle grabs the wolf, fighting the current to pull it to shore. A voice says, "Stay to see how enemies became friends." This is the rescue that broke nature's rules. Spring in Alaska can be deadly. The Toklat River, usually calm, had become a monster. Melting snow turned the water into a rushing, muddy mess. Trees ripped from the banks tumbled like toys in the current. This was no place for any animal to be, but one wolf had no choice. A 2-year-old male gray wolf, later named Keo, separated from his pack during a territorial fight. He was thin from days without food, his gray fur matted and wet. His pack was gone, driven away by bigger wolves. Now he stood at the river's edge, staring at the other side. There were caribou tracks over there, food, but the river was angry. Spring snowmelt had turned the usually calm water into a roaring monster. Trees and rocks tumbled in the brown current. It was dangerous. Keo whined. His stomach growled. He had to try. Keo stepped into the edge. The icy water made him gasp. He went deeper. The current grabbed him like a bear's paw. Keo panicked. He paddled hard, but the water was too strong. It pulled him under. Oh! Water filled his mouth. Up again. He gasped for air, then under once more. His legs got tired. His head spun. The river was winning. A massive female bald eagle, Tikani, nests near, high in a pine tree. Tikani watched. She was a big bald eagle, strong and sharp-eyed. Right now they were locked on the struggling wolf. Normally eagles and wolves were enemies. They stole food from each other. Just last week, Tikani had chased Keo away from her fish. She should have been happy to see him drown. But something was different. As Keo went under for the 3rd time, Tikani spread her huge wings. She dove. Splash! Tikani hit the water like a bullet. Her talons grabbed Keo's scruff, not to hurt, but to hold on. The river fought her. It pulled at the wolf's heavy body. Tikani's wings beat the air like thunder. Flap, flap, flap. Keo's head came up. He coughed up water. For a second it was working. Then, crack! A hidden log hit Tikani's wing. Pain shot through her body, but she didn't let go. One last try. With all her strength, she heaved Keo onto a gravel bar. Then she collapsed. 20 miles away, wildlife rangers Senelina Chenbrasenden and Mark Tolbert honored to monitor the area via drone feed. They're tracking wolf movements until the camera catches Keo being swept downstream. Mark mutters as the wolf disappears beneath a wave. Lena radios for backup, but they both know the truth. No boat can reach him in time. The drone's mice pick up their stunned silence. Then Lena's gasp as Tikani enters the frame. "She's going for him! That's a kill dive!" Mark shouts. But what happens next defies nature. Tikani's talons close around Keo's scruff, not to rip, but to gain grip. Water sprays as the eagle beats her wings with all her strength. Keo, half conscious, feels himself being dragged toward a gravel bar. For one surreal moment, predator and prey are allies against the river's wrath. Then, a submerged log slams into Tikani's wing. She shrieks, her hold on Keo faltering. The wolf slips back into the current as the eagle crashes onto the bank, one wing bent at a sickening angle. Keo's body floats limp, heading for a deadly set of rapids. Tikani struggles to stand, her beak open in a soundless cry. "We're losing them both," Lena whispers. Keo's paw twitches. With a surge of wild instinct, he lunges for a jutting rock, hauling himself onto the gravel bar just feet from Tikani. Dripping and shuddering, the two natural enemies lock eyes. The wolf's chest heaves. The eagle's breath comes in ragged pants. The radio crackles. Backup is 10 minutes out. But as the camera holds on this frozen moment, wolf and eagle alive only because of each other, one thing becomes clear: this isn't over, not even close. The Toklat River roared like a living beast, its icy currents swallowing both predator and prey. Tikani, the massive bald eagle, beat her powerful wings with desperate fury, each stroke sending sprays of freezing water into the air. Her talons were locked deep in Keo's scruff, the young wolf's body a dead weight in the churning rapids. The current dragged them under again, the world turning dark and suffocating. Bubbles streamed from Keo's muzzle. He was drowning. Then, with one final Herculean effort, Tikani wrenched them toward a gravel bar. Her wings trembled, muscles burning, as she hauled Keo onto the rocks. The moment his body thudded onto solid ground, she collapsed beside him. Her left wing bent at a sickening angle. A jagged pain shot through her. She couldn't fly. Keo lay motionless, his chest barely rising. The river had stolen his strength. Ranger Lena Chen's voice crackled over the radio. "And we've got visual. The eagle's down, wolf's unresponsive. Moving in." The rescue team arrived in a blur of boots and urgency. Vet techs rushed forward, assessing the damage. "Wolf's hypothermic, possible lung aspiration," one called out, wrapping Keo in a thermal blanket. "Eagle's got a severe wing sprain, possibly fractured," another said, gently securing Tikani's injured limb. Lena knelt beside them, shaking her head in disbelief. "And he really did it. She really did it. She saved him." The vet's report confirmed it. Tikani had risked everything. The force needed to drag a full-grown wolf from that current should have shattered her wings, yet she'd done it anyway. Inside the wildlife rehab center, Keo woke to the sterile scent of antiseptic and the hum of fluorescent lights. His ribs ached, his fur still damp. Then he heard it, a soft, familiar chirp. Tikani. She was in an adjacent enclosure, her wings splinted, her golden eyes fixed on him. Instead of snarling, instead of bristling at the sight of a natural enemy, Keo whined. A high, plaintive sound. He pressed against the chain-link fence separating them, his nose working as if memorizing her scent. Days passed. Tikani healed slowly, her wings still weak. When the vets finally released her into the outdoor aviary, Keo did something no one expected. He followed her. Not as a predator, not as a rival, as something else entirely. That evening, under the bruised purple twilight, Keo emerged from the tree line with a freshly caught rabbit clamped gently in his jaws. He padded to the base of Tikani's perch, dropped the offering, and stepped back. She stared at him. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, she swooped down and took it. The rangers watched, stunned. "That's not instinct," Lena murmured. "That's gratitude." And in weeks slipped by. Keo hunted for her daily. Ptarmigan, squirrels, even a young fox. Tikani no longer flinched at his approach. Instead, she waited for him, her sharp cries softening when he appeared. But the wilderness had rules, and their bond had made them outcasts. The East Fork pack caught Keo's scent first. They came at dusk, 6 strong, their alpha male leading the charge. Keo stood his ground, his lips peeling back in a snarl. But he was still weak, still outnumbered. Then, screeching fury from above, Tikani dove like a feathered missile, her talons raking across the alpha's back. The pack scattered, yelping in shock. Keo lunged, snapping at their retreating haunches. They fled, but the message was clear. This wasn't over. That night the wind changed. The first snowflake spiraled down, fat and silent, then more and more. By midnight the rehab center was engulfed in a blizzard, the kind that buried everything in its path. Lena radioed the team. "Chin, we need to secure the animals, now." But when they reached Keo's enclosure, the gate was open, empty. Tikani's aviary stood vacant too. Fresh tracks led into the whiteout, 2 sets side by side. The radio crackled. "It won't survive this," Mark said, his voice grim. Lena stared into the storm, imagining them out there, a wounded eagle and a scarred wolf facing the frozen dark together. Somewhere in that howling wilderness the rules of nature no longer applied, and the greatest test of their bond had only just begun. The wind screamed through the mountain pass like a living thing, hurling snow sideways in blinding sheets. Keo limped through the whiteout, his injured leg dragging, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Beside him, Tikani struggled to keep up. Her damaged wing dragged through the snow, leaving a crooked trail behind them. The storm had come too fast. The temperature had plunged to -30°F, and now survival was no longer about instinct. It was about sacrifice. "And they won't last the night," Ranger Lena's voice crackled over the radio as the search team fought their way through the storm. The drone's thermal camera had lost them an hour ago. Somewhere in this frozen hell, a wolf and an eagle were defying every law of nature. Then, a miracle, a faint heat signature pulsed on the monitor. The team followed it to a massive hollow log, half buried in snow. Inside, the thermal imaging showed something extraordinary. Keo lay curled in a tight circle, his thick fur matted with ice, and pressed against his belly, sheltered by his body heat. Tikani. The eagle's head was tucked under his chin, her good wing draped over his paws like a blanket. Lena's gloves trembled as she radioed the vet. "Unsan, we found them, and you're not going to believe how." A wildlife sanctuary's infirmary glowed warm against the Alaskan night. Keo woke first, his ribs wrapped in bandages, his legs stitched and splinted. The moment his eyes focused, he was on his feet, whining, pacing, scratching at the door. They led him to Tikani's enclosure. The eagle stood on a low perch, her wings still in a sling. When Keo saw her, he let out a sound no wolf should ever make, a high, keening cry, more puppy than predator. Tikani answered with a soft chirp, bobbing her head. The staff exchanged glances. This wasn't just survival, this was family. As weeks turned to months, the sanctuary became their home. Keo, once a lone wolf, now slept curled beneath Tikani's aviary every night. When she was finally strong enough to fly again, her first act was to soar over the fence and drop a freshly caught trout at Keo's paws. But the most stunning revelation came from Dr. Eli Vance, a biologist studying animal behavior. "And Tikani lost a chick to wolves 5 years ago," he revealed, pulling up old field notes. Keo's eyes, they're identical to her lost eaglets. She didn't just save him, she recognized him. The sun dipped below the Toklat River, painting the sky in wildfire hues. On a ridge overlooking the valley, 2 shadows stood together, one broad and lupine, the other sleek and feathered. Keo lifted his muzzle and howled, the sound echoing across the wilderness. Tikani answered with a cry of her own, her wings outstretched to catch the last light. For a moment, the world held its breath. Then, as silently as they'd appeared, they vanished into the trees, not as enemies, not as outliers, but as something far more rare. Because sometimes the most powerful stories don't need words. They just need a chance. Drop a comment if you believe in second chances. Dear friend, thank you for watching. Leave a comment below and tell us how this touched your heart. Subscribe to our channel, Tales of Paws and People, to help us spread more stories of grace, healing, and hope. And may God bless every soul watching this. May you find warmth in the storm and light in the silence.